Putin claims victory in Kursk, the first foreign occupation of Russian soil since World War II. Now he says crushed, but Ukraine says the battle is far from over. For the first time, Russia openly admits North Korean troops are fighting alongside its forces. And as the battlefield shifts, diplomacy heats up. Zelensky meets Trump at the Vatican, demanding security guarantees and refusing to surrender Ukrainian land as Kursk smolders and peace talks teeter. Is a historic deal within reach or slipping away? Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed that his country has regained control of Kursk. The border region where Ukraine launched a surprise offensive last year. Though Ukraine's army says fighting continues, Putin said the Kiev regime's adventure has completely failed, congratulating the Russian forces that he said defeated the Ukrainian military in the region in what would be a symbolic boost for Moscow at a crucial point in the war. In his address, Putin said recapturing Kursk creates conditions for further successful actions of our troops in other important areas of the front. Was initially assessed. I congratulate all personnel of all military units that took part in the defeat of neo-Nazi formations that invaded Russian territory in the Kursk region. The Kiev regime's adventure has completely failed, and the huge losses suffered by the enemy, including among the most combat-ready, trained, and equipped, including with Western models of equipment, forces of the Ukrainian armed forces, and these are assault units. Special forces will certainly be reflected along the entire line of combat contact. The complete defeat of the enemy in the Kursk borderland creates conditions for further successful actions of our troops in other important areas of the front. The defeat of the neo-Nazi regime closer. I congratulate all personnel, all fighters and commanders on the success, on the victory. I thank you for the courage, heroism, for serving our fatherland and the people of Russia. Thank you. Chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, thanked the North Korean soldiers, praising their high professionalism, steadfastness, courage, and heroism in battle. The Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief said today the last settlement in the Kursk region, the village of Gornal, has been liberated from Ukrainian units. Thus, the defeat of the armed formations of the Ukrainian armed forces that invaded the Kursk region has been completed. The plans of the Kiev regime to create a so-called strategic bridgehead and disrupt our offensive in the Donbass have failed. I would like to separately note the participation of the servicemen of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the liberation of the border areas of the Kursk region, who, in accordance with the Treaty on Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between our countries, provided significant assistance in the defeat of the wedged group of the Ukrainian armed forces. Soldiers and officers of the Korean People's Army performing combat missions, shoulder to shoulder with Russian servicemen, demonstrated high professionalism, showed fortitude, courage, and heroism in battle during the repelling of the Ukrainian invasion. Contrary to Russian claims, the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said in a Telegram post that Putin's claim about the end of hostilities in Kursk was not true. The defensive operation of the Ukrainian Defense Forces in the designated areas in the Kursk region continues. The operational situation is difficult, but our units continue to hold their positions and perform their assigned tasks. Ukraine launched its shock incursion into Kursk in August, swiftly capturing territory in what was the first ground invasion of Russia by a foreign power since World War II. Since then, Russia, with support from North Korean soldiers, has been fighting to oust Ukraine's forces from its borders, while Kiev had poured precious resources into holding on to its territory there, with the view of using it as a key bargaining chip in any peace talks. The operation was also launched to relieve pressure from the embattled Eastern Front line. If Putin's claims are true, hopes of using Kursk as a bargaining counter are now gone, and Ukraine's retreat has the potential to dent Kiev's political clout, as well as its military's morale. After 3 years of war, and with intense efforts underway towards finding peace, though the U.S. has attempted to broker peace talks between Ukraine and Russia over recent months, tensions between the leaders of the three countries have meant that very little has come to fruition. Another whirlwind week of diplomacy saw U.S. President Donald Trump accuse Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky of making it so difficult to settle this war for refusing to accept Russia's annexation of Crimea, but later saying Russia and Ukraine were very close to a deal. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on April 26 that his constructive meeting at the Vatican with U.S. President Donald Trump could prove historic if the peaceful end to Ukraine's war with Russia that they discussed is achieved. Good meeting. We discussed a lot. One-on-one, hoping for results on everything we covered. Protecting lives of our people. Full and unconditional ceasefire. Reliable and lasting peace that will prevent another war from breaking out. Very symbolic meeting that has potential to become historic if we achieve joint results. Thank you, President of the United States. Earlier, Zelensky said Kyiv expects Washington to provide long-term security assistance modeled on the U.S. relationship with Israel. Speaking to journalists on Friday, Zelensky insisted that any future peace deal with Moscow must be backed by sustained U.S. military, financial, and political support. Discussions in London have focused on security guarantees from the United States. We hope them to be at least as robust as those provided to Israel. Additionally, we anticipate support from our European partners and are actively developing the infrastructure necessary for these guarantees. Meanwhile, Trump said on April 26 that Putin should not be bombing civilian areas in Ukraine, adding that secondary sanctions on Russia might be necessary in response. I'm just trying to clean up the mess that was left to me by Obama and Biden, and what a mess it is. With all of that being said, there is no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities, and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war, that he's just tapping me along and has to be dealt with differently through banking or secondary sanctions. Too many people are dying. We have a responsibility to act. We will continue to do everything we must do. World War III has never been closer than it is right now. People have seen that the system has been broken. We have people on the ground working around the clock. Wake up. Listen to the international community. Time has come to change this.